Education, a new model. Rebuilding education as though the internet happened. What I mean by that is that the way education works today is completely wrong because we have the tools to make it something so much better, so much more efficient, as I will explain later on. Right, so it's by me, Andrew Atkin from Building Utopia. Now, I have to give you a direct example to show what I mean, to show how easy it is to make a screencast video, and in particular it applies to STEM courses: science, technology, engineering, maths. And they're the important courses, particularly important because they're the most challenging to teach, and there's an enormous amount of economic development to be gained out of a highly technically literate culture, of course, especially in today's world. Right, now this example is about restarting a car that's got a big engine in it and needs a high current feed. Now what I've done with this example is I've just basically substituted hair dryers for battery packs, because that's the best way I can explain it, to explain why it should be hooked up in parallel and not series. Okay, so there's our junction point. We'll start from there. Two generators, battery packs, feeding into it in parallel. And there's your motor that is powering away. And there's your complete circuit. Right, so let's say you have about 12 volts of pressure, air pressure, feeding in from the hair dryers into the motor. Because they're hooked up in parallel, it won't make any difference if you have 1, 2 or 100 hair dryers feeding into the same point. They're all going to deliver the same actual pressure, and voltage is electrical pressure, for electron fluid if you like. I'm just substituting it with air fluid. Now that 12 volts drops back to almost zero as it goes past the motor and feeds back in through the circuit. In theory it should be zero, but the resistance of the cabling, the plumbing, creates back pressure in itself, so it's never quite zero. Okay, so let's do what we shouldn't do, hook it up in series and see what happens. Well, the first hair dryer on the right will deliver 12 volts of pressure, and because it's feeding directly into the second hair dryer on the left, it will step up the voltage, the pressure, and what comes out of the next hair dryer will be 24 volts. Now if that motor is only designed to take 12 volts, then that's a really bad idea because you'll blow it up. Okay, so when you're feeding in power to a 12 volt motor, you must keep it at 12 volts, keep the same pressure, and if it's a big motor, so it has a high current draw, then that's fine. You need to hook up your battery packs in parallel to make sure you're not blowing any circuits and you get the correct amount of power going into the motor. And it's as simple as that. Right, so that's the example. My whole point in making that example, again, is to show how STEM courses should be structured. If I was a teacher standing in front of a class of 30 students giving a lecture on maths or physics or something like that, I couldn't think of anything more excruciating than coming up with a video like this, or coming up with a communication system like this, because it takes time to sit down and think about this, of course, to work out the best way to explain it, and then to waste it on just 30 students. I mean, it's ridiculous. What I should do is exactly what I've done now, and just create a video, screencast video, which is very, very easy to make, chuck it up on YouTube, and hey, guess what? I don't have to just teach 30 students. I could teach the entire world if they're so fascinated in how to hook up battery packs to a motor, a starter motor. And again, that applies to anything. So how about this? How about I sit down and make a whole lot of videos teaching whatever course you want, put them on YouTube, the students go home, watch the videos at home for homework, and then they come into class the next day to do the exercises. The beautiful thing about videos, of course, is that you can watch any video, anytime, anywhere, from your cell phone, wherever. Stop it, pause it, take it to mum and dad, say I don't get this part, explain it, or an older sibling or something, and all the students come to class the next day already 95% expert on what they're learning. The teacher goes around the classroom looking for problems, responding to questions, to diagnose where students are going wrong. The students learn largely from each other, and you've got an education system where, again, people can learn anything at any time. You can have people doing different courses in the same classroom at all different levels, basically. Why on earth not? It's an infinitely more efficient form of education, and it gives students the freedom to learn more targeted what they actually want to learn, what's of interest to them. And as we all know, who we're trying to kid, we all learn so much more efficiently and so much better if we're learning out of interest, with a bit more intrinsic interest. I mean, if you've got no intrinsic interest in what you're learning, you might pass the exam, but you're going to forget it all straight after the exam. It's a joke, a bad joke. Okay, and this is why also I advocate for the free market, aggressively deregulated education model. Because when you take away the regulations, you all of a sudden give schools the incentives and the powers to innovate. And that means they can automatically start to develop these systems, and naturally they would. The final result would be that we would all be wondering, why on earth did we tolerate our ancient system as they stand for so long? The key insight is this: traditional education only works the way it works originally because we never had the tools to make it work any different. Well, we're a very, very different world, so now we need to modernize, truly modernize, go through the rethink, give the innovators the freedom to find the correct model. And if you want to learn further about this, I wrote about this. This goes right back to 2010, Education and New Model. Just Google for it, Building Utopia, and my name, Andrew Atkin, and I elaborate on it further there. Thanks very much. I hope you found some interest.